right. So joining us on the podcast today is Ranjith, Associate Director of Customer Success at CleverTap. Really great to have you on the podcast today. I appreciate you joining in. And just for any of the audience out there who doesn't know about CleverTap, would love for you to give an overview of what you guys do over there, as well as the teams that you're managing right now.
Perfect. Thanks for having me today. So I was going through some of the videos, the quite interesting stuff. So just wanted to hop on the first opportunity when you reached out. Yeah, regarding CleverTap, it is a customer engagement tool. So as today's world is running mostly on the apps, right? So it's app owner, you want to understand what your customers are doing on your app, what are they purchasing, what are they interacting. So CleverTap helps you to analyze all your customer interactions on the app, trying to nudge them into doing a preferable behavior and then maximizing your potential with the customer interaction. So that's what we do. So we work with a lot of apps and developers and trying to understand like how they want to nudge their customers or how do they want to drive their customers in a particular fashion.
That's great. And the teams that you manage, are those mainly remote or are they all within office right now?
So we have a hybrid setup. So we have few days that we work from office, but majority of the days I think we are remote and we are spread across.
Great. And obviously, since like post COVID, I know that there's a lot that's changed with distributed teams and how remote teams operate. Has it been a struggle for you guys, or have you guys always been a remote team?
Fortunately, I think that's where I took a people management role during the COVID phase. So 5, 6 years back, I was the first people manager. And that's where we adapted to the situation. We know that we are not going to office for the next 2, 3 years. So I think Zoom and Slack were the go-to things to communicate. There were hard lessons, something that couldn't be a water cooler conversations were missing, something that can be understood during the floor hurdles were missing. But we understood that over communication is the key. Just give the benefit of doubt and try and reinstate something over and over again so that it doesn't go through the Slack messages. I think now people have adapted to it in terms of what to do, what not to do in a remote environment, how to set the boundaries, how to set the expectations. So that's keeping going.
Definitely. And I know that one topic I really wanted to cover today was with budget cuts, shrinking teams in the world of AI, as well as metrics as well, just customer success metrics maybe that are outdated, some of the ones that you're looking at closely and that you maybe follow most closely. So to start off there, just what's your idea around this shift over to AI and teams doing more with less, especially on the customer success side, as teams are asked to do more with less? Just curious how you're thinking about that within a customer success role.
Certainly, yes. I think with the buzzword being AI or around all the industries, I think doing more with less is something that people are using, especially the CFOs when you're trying to allocate budget to different sectors, right? But then we use AI, we have our AI development as well. So we know what it is capable of, what are the strengths and cons of it. So we kind of use AI to enable the humans rather than to replace them. Because I think that's the best way that we can use AI. And as a data centric platform, we have a lot of data and a lot of customer conversation that we can feed the AI model into. That's giving us an edge where we can train the AI with better data, with a lot of scope of data so that there's no particular error with respect to one particular cohort that spikes particular. So
Yeah. So a lot more enablement on your side and less so of the shrinking teams. Okay, that's interesting. So I guess on the enablement side, are you able to like dig into what you guys are doing to help enable reps? I know that's a little bit of like a loaded question. I don't want to have you dive in too far into the details, but are you just able to give a high level overview of maybe a couple things that you guys are doing for enablement?
correct. We try to have the product trained for our reps because once you know the product, I think you know your business and who you're dealing with respect to the use case, etc. So there's constant product enablement session that runs after month on month. And we also have a dedicated sales enablement team who helps us with updating ourselves on the current trends, be it with respect to sales or customer conversations or other things that's going on in the industry. Maybe a new competitor or maybe a takeover that's going to impact us in some way or other. Maybe there's a new update from Google which will eventually trickle down into our business or things like that. So that's being taken care of by sales enablement team. Apart from that, peer-to-peer learning is what I particularly focus on in terms of understanding the book of business or your customers, right? So whenever someone publishes a case study or maybe we have a good feedback from the customer, we help the particular CSM or the rep to share the whole journey with the other CSM because maybe not they could come across the same journey in that book of business as well. Relating to similar problems in the similar space, similar country, geographies, I think that is more interesting than textbook.
Yeah. And I guess what's really interesting to me is that AI obviously helps a lot with reps and allowing them to not burn out as fast. But customer success is such a high empathy role where customer interactions and human touch is so important. How do you guys bridge the gap between implementing AI and having your customer success team use it and train them on it, but still provide that high empathy human touch?
What we could understand from our customer interaction is like most of the time when they have a problem, they want to talk to even not a AI or a machine model, right? Especially in case of escalations where they go to a support first and then it's not resolved and then they escalate it to customer success and things like that. Again, we don't want them to repeat the problem. So that's where we leverage AI, where we try to understand the previous conversation, get a gist of it, and then possibly it could suggest one or two solutions. And then we take it from there, do our human intelligence model on it, where we try to understand, okay, what can relate to this particular account? Maybe summarize what's been going on so far so that the customer gains confidence that, okay, I'm not sitting here and burning chairs, but I'm actually going through your previous conversations. I know what's happening. I know exactly what. I think that AI gives us the edge in terms of understanding like multiple tickets, threads of conversations into a quick summary so that this rep knows what exactly has happened and what to do next. So that's how been bridging the where to use AI versus where to use the human part of it, right? So that's been.
And have you seen burnout reduce as things have been more automated and AI has scaled throughout your organization?
Certainly, yes. I think there's a lot of redundant work which are not your core part of the skill, but you have to do it because to maintain a structured model, maybe it could be updating your CRM or rewriting your whole email, maybe setting an MOM at the end of the meeting. So those things are where AI certainly can address. I know with a lot of video conferencing now offering their own AI tools to summarize, and then we can only add or edit items to it. I think that's a major burnout phase where the webs are filling up.
For sure. And switching over to the metrics side, something that I really enjoy talking about is like outdated metrics, ones that are most up to date right now, especially on the product side and customer effort score and the ways that people will use them or provide different variables within their algorithms to get them on their team. So, what's one customer experience metric that you think is maybe a little bit outdated just in 2025 and maybe one that you're using that is taking its place?
This could be a little controversial one because this is my personal opinion again. I feel like NPS is, I wouldn't say outdated, but not so measure of your customer happiness or how they stand. Because I read somewhere that the NPS response score is around 20%, which means you're judging your customers based on 20% of the response. And out of those 20%, if 10% is right or wrong, that's a very minority portion to generalize your whole customer base. And from my experience, those who are happy always not tend to give you NPS. They just go away with it. Especially the ones who are not happy are the ones who take the effort to fill out an NPS form or something. Yes, I wouldn't say redundant, but it wouldn't be the right way to generalize your customer base. Maybe if I got two bad NPS out of 10 customers, that doesn't mean that my other 8 are not happy, right? Yes, there is certainly a problem with those two customers, but that is had to be dealt on a microscopic level to able to what issues there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, so I guess on the NPS side, before you maybe hop into what you believe its place or things that you guys are using right now, on the NPS side, is that something where you think it's giving maybe half of the story and you guys do proactive reach outs after the fact to learn more, to get more out of the NPS, or you completely replaced it?
No, we still do follow NPS. It's not that we completely replaced it. So whenever some, like I said, NPS are mostly from happy customers. That's where we want to pay our attention as well, right? So once an NPS comes in, there is a standard process where we reach out to the customers, try to understand what's wrong, maybe dig into our old conversations, and then if there's a chance, we try and solve it for the customer, then try and change the sentiment around. But we rely more on something called customer confidence score. So this is again majorly driven from your product adoptions score, the customer interactions, and then your CSM inputs manually based on your weekly or bi-weekly meetings. So that has a multiple angles to it rather than an NPS is what we.
Definitely. And I guess what's all involved in that customer confidence score? I know that it's indexed in different ways. What kind of data is being pulled without giving too many details? I guess what's included within that score and why you're enjoying it more than NPS?
Like I said, customer confidence score, we try to derive it from multiple angles of a 360 view of the customer, right? Some of the things that go into calculating the score is your product adoption score in terms of the depth and breadth of the feature usage or frequency of usage. Engagement metrics, which is like how frequent are we meeting the customer? Is there any issues with recurring meetings? How many levels of engagement do we have with the customer? Yeah, VP level or a C-suite level or at manager level or who's are at that disposal. And then the customer confidence, which we directly derive from the CSM based on their interactions, especially with renewals coming up, we try to discuss those topics and see, okay, is there a pending issue? Is there something that important to the customer, or are we good to go on with the renewal? So that is the sentiment that we directly derive from CSM. And it's a mixture of these three that in different proportions that we try and build the customer confidence.
So it's just a lot more holistic, telling a better story from all angles, whether it's product adoption, touch points from reps, and a lot more of a full story than what MPS maybe gives.
It's a mixture of metrics plus human intelligence. So that would give you the whole picture rather than one single NPS where it is like unidirectional.
Right now, from like a budgeting standpoint, do you think there's any areas that are most underinvested in right now? I guess one that a lot of people I think bring up as an easy answer is on the AI side, but is there any other areas, maybe more hiring of reps, or just curious what you think is most underinvested in right now within the experience or customer success space?
Maybe not underinvested, maybe, but I would say even sometimes even the refs are not motivated to do this is like in-person meets and in-person events. Because I think I've seen a trend where webinars are taking over. I'm not sure if it's here to stay or if it was just a COVID bubble. But that is replacing some of the in-person meetings and events that we wanted to do. Because those in-person face-to-face conversations definitely add a lot more dynamics to your relationship in terms of knowing who you're dealing with, going over emails and Zoom calls. I think when you meet someone in person, I think you try and build the relationship and to stay with who they like. So that is something that I
So a
am.
big emphasis on team culture and growing that, especially like in the remote environment.
I think there is a reason why people are hired remote so that they stay close to the customers, right? We might as well leverage that to go meet them like once in a month or bi-weekly basis or once in a quarter when you're doing your QBR CBN so that you build those interpersonal relationship. And when things go wrong, they know who to reach out to rather than probably escalating things or assuming things from the customers.
Definitely. Do you think it's still like an option to grow that remote culture just as strong, maybe by having video conferencing calls with your team outside of like a work environment? Or do you think you need those human touch points and to have like maybe team offsites in person? I guess I'm just curious because I hear that idea of kind of meeting up in person is very important, but I'm also curious, is it just to have those sessions maybe on a video conferencing call with your team outside of a work environment, or is it truly being with the team in person?
Okay. I think let me take a step back on this is it starts from the hiring perspective, right? While hiring, you need to look for the right scope of people, give them the expectation, okay, what is it going to be on a remote environment? And align fully on what is expected out of them in terms of their commitment and things like that. You can't just randomly hire and then one day you decide to change rules. Okay, everyone has to turn the videos on the video call. So set the culture from the hiring part itself so that you hire people who are aligned on your guidelines or ethics that you follow. And then when similar people of similar interest are there in the team group, it's easier to manage than to just impose a rule and then expect people to follow it. Yes, in-person meetings offsite definitely help go beyond your messages, transaction conversations, trying to understand the person. That goes a long way into follow-up conversations that you might have once you go back to your respective place.
Is there anything that you guys do for fun as a team outside of the work environment in person? I'm just curious to hear. And I don't know, every team's a little bit different with kind of the events that they hold and things that they do as a team, but just curious to maybe hear one of yours.
Apart from the customary dinners and then day outs and things like that, etc. We are based out of Mumbai, which means this is the monsoon season for us. And then the treks that we have nearby are like really famous and very good to for a weekend trip or something. We started going out on hikes, especially on the weekends. Those places are like 2-3 hours from where we live. And then we go start early morning and then wrap up the day or stay overnight. So there, I think it's much more of a relaxed environment where we try to understand the person as such, which in turn comes back to the office relationship that we manage and are built up.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess, are those events that you guys do maybe outside of work or on weekends, are they all pretty close where everybody can easily get to them and travel? Or they don't have to, it's not like a traditional travel where maybe it's across the country or staying in a hotel or something like that. It's just little weekend trips that you guys do.
Predominantly, but there are also like a sequence of events. What we do when I usually take over a team is we do a 30-minute presentation on myself or each team member when someone joins in, where they list out what do they been through. This is completely on the non-professional side or not. We don't want to know what they worked on previously, how many MVP they scored, etc. So we want to understand them as a person, what are their interests, likes, dislikes, etc. That way we be able to relate to the person a lot better. Maybe someone likes football, I like football. We try to engage conversations. Maybe someone likes hiking, I like hiking too. So we plan our trips together. So it's more about finding commonalities between the team members that would eventually build up those conversations and result in activity. So it's not just for the sake of, okay, we need to do something for team bonding, but it's more what are our common interests? Let's do something on that way.
Yeah, I think that's great. And just maybe shifting gears here a little bit towards friction-filled processes, is there anything right now that you guys maybe deal with or that you think is maybe more of a widespread customer experience issue within like the not necessarily like the ticketing process, but maybe within customer interactions, anything that there's friction that you think is difficult to solve right now and what's holding either you back or you think any teams back from solving that right now?
So one thing I would say is social media escalations that we typically come across, right? Especially when someone wants to escalate on social media, be it LinkedIn or somewhere else. I think they directly tag the CEOs or the CISO people on it. From there, coming in down, trickling down to understanding what's happened and then trying to solve that down. I think that's still been a friction point because a lot of times the CISO would want to save the brand name and then they jump into the solutions. But there are some aspects that we've done so far. And then it's a very kind sensitive issue, right? Once it goes on social media. So I think that is something that is still uncontrollable. Of course, the customer has every right to do so if he's not getting what he wants. But that is something that's strictly not under our control and it's wide open. And especially if you're a public company, like the previous one I worked for, I think that's a lot more sensitive than what it is.
Definitely. And would you say the customer success team is who's helping out with some of those issues as they come in that way? I know that in a social media environment, I think the main issue there is like there's a lot of eyes on it. So I guess on your end, is it mainly the customer success team who's dealing with those first?
Predominantly, but we get equal support from the support team as well, because from what I've seen, most of the issue arise from the support team and then probably get escalated to customer success or it gets escalated on social media, right? And if a conversation goes on for more than 5 conversations or a resolution, the CSM obviously gets a notification of it. So he or she is aware of something when it's at the starting point. But yeah, once it goes to an escalation point, I think the CSM and the support team are equally responsible and they're the primary ones who solve for it. Occasionally, yeah, there is product team also involved if it requires a product level solutioning. But these two are the major front.
For sure. And I guess right now, as AI evolves, I think products are advancing a lot quicker. So I guess right now in that environment, how do you design your organization to scale faster than the product and not just reactively keeping up with it?
That's a very tough question to be in because I know there's a lot of that's coming up in our way. Like every process that we do, I think there is an AI tool for it, right? So it's hard for, and we do have our own AI process as well that's going on. So how do we not be reactive and be proactive on it? I think is to understand and be open to accepting AI. Maybe if something's coming up in our way, I think we'll try to leverage it, understand it, and see how we can utilize it to our benefit rather than scared that, okay, it's going to replace jobs or things like that.
Yeah.
So most times we've seen that it enables the team in terms of avoiding those redundant works and trying to understand or unlock new opportunities that we can further scope on. For example, bots is one such example where a lot of L1s are getting resolved with via chatbots rather than human interaction. We were able to cut out a lot of huge space of bandwidth to focus on some of the L2s and L3s and reduce the SLA on them. Being open to accepting AI and then probably trying to understand how to use it because AI again is like a tool that we can use. In the hands of the right skilled person, I think it can make wonders, or is it just a toy in a hands of child? So it depends on how we feed it and then you make use of it.
Definitely. And I know that there's two different angles with that. It's the one side maybe where it's a little bit more reactive, where AI is identifying trends with support tickets. And then there's also the proactive approach where maybe customer success reps are reaching out proactively and asking for customer feedback. So I guess, do you think it is a good mix of both, or do you think it's relying more on one side or the other?
We've done both. So in my previous stint, we did something called scaled CSM, which means a particular CSM. And this was catering to the SMB segment, right? So where a single CSM was, I wouldn't say directly handling, but he was tagged to close to 500, 600 accounts. So there we leveraged a lot on the AI model that we built in where we need the AI model kind of flagged accounts that we need to focus on and for the reason why. So we analyzed the previous couple of years of churn and understood signals that a customer would potentially show before he eventually churns. And we train the AI to identify those signals and then flag it to the CSM so that he can focus on those 10, 12 accounts rather than the whole 500, because not all those 500 need attention at the same time. In the same way, with respect to support, we've done reactive process where we analyze the ticket, identify patterns and then trends, and then give it to the product team if there's a similar situation, things like. So it has to be a mix of both. And for CSM specifically, it has to be product.
What about on the knowledge base side? I know that this is a little bit more of a question based around AI and how knowledge bases play a really big part in scaling your AI strategy, especially with agents, because all of that knowledge base information feeds those AI agents. What are you guys doing on the customer success side or maybe the support side to help build strong and accurate knowledge base information? Is that on the or the customer success side that you guys are building that?
So it's driven more from the support side, where knowledge base is a perfect place to start with, where we have standard information. But there needs to be ongoing learning in terms of the current trend of tickets. Our AI, maybe in the current one and in the previous one, right? So it also learns from the tickets that is coming on a daily basis. Maybe outside of knowledge base, there is a solution that's being provided for a particular issue. I think if there's a repetition of such solution, I think it learns from it as well and then tries to pick up solutions where it again needs to be approved by the AI architect. Learning again from the ongoing conversations helps us to be a little more dynamic from AI solutioning part. So it's just this reading out of the textbook and giving you solutions, but it's also understanding maybe something's off the books and then how can I approach those situations.
Definitely. And I guess last question here, because I know we're almost at time. One question I always like to end with is, what's something in your customer success career that you're particularly proud of, whether it's outcomes based or how you got there?
I think in my previous, so when I said, so at that point in time, customer success was not really a thing for SMB customers. We were predominantly targeting enterprise and mid-market customers, but SMB customers were a huge chunk of our profit. So we try to set up something called digital segment or a scaled CSM, where the we try to unlock the model because there was not such before what we tried, where it was a CSM could handle 500 accounts with the help of tools and techniques in the AI model that we built in by paying the right attention to the right account. That was like a 2-year-long journey. We started with a team of 13 and then it eventually grew to a team of 60. So that showed a lot of results and a lot of opportunities as well within the company. And then slowly we expanded the scope of those segments a little bit beyond the SMB segment to a mid-market as well, and where it grew. But the starting point was, I was part of the founding team where we're trying to crack the problem, and that is something that we're close to.
That's great. So still addressing the need for those high value touch points and giving the right attention to those SMB customers as well.
You can say doing more with less in the first word that we want to use.
For sure. Awesome. That was all of the questions that I had today. I think we talked about a lot of great insights here for the past half hour, but really appreciated you coming on. Is there anything that you wanted to leave the audience with, just like a piece of knowledge, where you think the customer experience space is moving, or just anything that you wanted to end with before we go?
I don't think I can preach anything. I think they are smart enough already. But one thing that I see and believe and have a lot of affirmation as well is that customer experience is being the competitive differentiator now in this segment, right? Because right now with the availability of AI, everyone can build the same kind of platform and same kind of features. But in terms of how do you sell it, how do you expect the customers to receive and then use the product, I think customer experience definitely is, especially now that we have a lot of SaaS student progress. I think renewals are a key part. And then to have them being loyal to you year after year, it's not a 3-year or 5-year contract anymore. It's quarterly, annual contracts that we do. So customer experience definitely play a key role in making sure that it sticks on people.
Definitely. I appreciate you joining on. I think there's a lot of great information here for our audience, and I think they'll really enjoy it. So it was great talking with you today, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Thanks, Ranjith.